So in the past, I've done videos going in depth about how to create complex designs using 3D modeling software. I have a Dark Mechanicus Tech Priest, as well as Remote Control Doom Crawler. But for this one, I'll be taking it back to basics. You can build along with this one, as you only be needing the bits that are freely available online. You can find these parts in the video description. I'll be using simple controls, so if they're comfortable with rotating and scaling the model, then you too can copy me exactly. So let's jump into Blender and check out this crazy creation. First off, we want to bring in our bits. They're freely available for you to download and print straight away, but we're going to be spicing them up a bit. First, let's bring in the main body of our creation, a dinosaur. To do this, we'll use the input option in the file menu. Get used to it because this is how we'll be bringing in all our bits to the virtual table. So this creator has given us a lot of different options. This is common with STL files, whereby the creator provides different options for people to create with. But for this video, we will only need the main body, which is cut up into sections. So we will select and then delete the bits that we don't need. With the separate parts, we are ready to begin aligning them together. This is where the rotate feature comes into the equation. By pressing R, you can rotate a piece around a certain point. All key presses can be seen in the bottom right corner of the virtual table, so you know what keys I'm pressing. Once it's been rotated, we press G for grab to move it around. Unlike physical kit bashing, we can leave objects floating in the air without having to glue them to the base. This makes it so much easier to align and combine objects together. You notice as well that I'm snapping my camera to the front and side of the table. This allows me to rotate the object around only one axis, which is much easier than rotating them freely. When rotating an object, you might find that it rotates in a strange way, around a point that is far away from the piece itself. Well, this is because the origin is not set yet. By right-clicking the bit and choosing Set Origin, we can move the origin closer to the center point, indicated by the little yellow dot. Now if we rotate again, we can see that it behaves much more naturally. There are many different techniques to change the origin of this piece, but this will suffice for now, as we're only doing the simple kit bash. It is also important to remember to look around the object. In a 3D world, we take our eyes and hands for granted. We can hold objects and know where they are in relation to each other. But in a 2D world, like a computer screen, depth and physical touch are not possible. As you can see with this tail being very far away from the body, there have been advances in virtual reality in recent years, whereby you can immerse yourself in a virtual world and select objects more naturally. But we still have a long way to go before we can explore something as advanced as Blender and other 3D modeling programs in that world. Now that we have all the parts aligned, we are going to join them together. This will make them easier to move as one. To do this, select multiple objects by holding the Shift key and then press Ctrl J to join. This acts as super glue in the physical world, but unlike glue, you can remove these parts if you don't like them later. So once they're all joined, you can see that the yellow outline now circles the entire model. This means that it is one piece. As for the legs, I have something else in mind for them, so we can delete them. On to the next part. I will need something or someone to control this beast. A rider for the dinosaur. Luckily I found this file which looks perfect for the job. Like the dinosaur, it has different files for different uses. And one of these files is just the rider on her own, without the previous mount. I have moved her into place, but look at her legs, they are nowhere near wide enough to straddle this dino. She needs to be bigger, we need to scale her up. This is another simple command. Using the S key should be scaled up until her legs sit comfortably either side of the dinosaur body. She is scaled up from origin point, so make sure to change your origin to geometry. To line her up is a little more tricky than the dino itself. This is because she comes from a different file and was never meant to sit in the back of this creature. This is also why this is called kit bash and not a conversion. It might have been possible to move her legs or manipulate the dimensions of the dinosaur using more advanced techniques in Blender, but in this video I'll keep to the basics. So this model doesn't look too bad, a rider and a dinosaur, but personally I would like the dino to have a bit more flair. This is where head swap comes into it. I got a bunch of bits for a dinosaur with frills, but I only want the head, so I delete the rest. The head is still a little large, so using S for scale, I shrink it down to a more manageable size. The only problem is that we already have a head on this model, and I have glued to the body with a join. This is where the power of computers come in. With a quick press of the Tab key, it will give us a more detailed view of the model. And with everything selected, I press P for, I don't know, prise apart? Either way, P lets you separate the model by its loose bits, which unglues the tail from the head. Pressing Tab again returns to the simple view. As you can see that all bits are separate again, as though they were never glued in the first place. I then select the head and delete it. But it looks like the head was attached to the neck with no way to separate it. Seems like this will come back to bite me in the future. But for now we have a floating head, which looks way cooler than the old one. Quick reminder to save your work often. There's nothing worse than losing your progress if the program crashes. Now we come to the Sci in the sci-fi creation. Bring on the roboparts! This model is ginormous and very detailed. Meant to be printed in multiple parts, you can see there are a lot of bits for us to play with. You can also see that when we import it, it came in at an odd angle. This is how the model was saved, so some files tend to do that. But fear not, with the new pieces come in, they are automatically selected, so we can manipulate them all as one piece. A quick press of the R key and we will rotate them 90 degrees, and by grabbing them, move them away from our project so not to muddle things up with lots of bits everywhere. So as I mentioned before, this kit comes in lots of small sections, which will need to be joined together before we can move them. So now I'm going to be joining the bits together, which I think need to be kept as one piece. I'm also deleting any excess parts that will not be needed for this build. So now you can see we are left with two mechanical legs with a separate joint at the hip, knee, ankle and foot joint. While these kind of files may look intimidating to a new virtual builder, they're some of my favourite, as the articulation makes it so much easier to pose the model in more interesting positions. Next I'm going to do a more slightly advanced technique, but it's not necessary for this build. I'm going to be parenting different objects to each other. This will make it so that by rotating the hip, the entire leg will rotate, and with it I can also manipulate each joint separately too. This will also allow me to scale up the section by just scaling the top parent. To parent, you need to select the lowest joint, so in this case the foot, then select the limb you want to attach it to, the leg, and then press Ctrl P with the Keep Transform option selected. This means that when the leg moves, the foot stays attached to it. But if needed, we can rotate and move the foot after moving the leg. I do this with the rest of the joints to make two fully articulated legs. Remember, when parenting, select the child first and the parent second. Now we position our legs in place and scale them up so they look appropriate for the model so far. Because they're parented, the last parent controls all the children below, so I can scale and move them and the children would follow. Because these limbs are separate, we can make some really dynamic poses with them. As the riders seem to be surveying the area, I'll keep their legs in a simple walking pose, but they could be running, leaping, kicking, crouching. This is what makes separate objects so powerful when it comes to virtual kit bashing. Now some augmented arms to add to this dinosaur existing forelimbs. You may have seen me rotate and scale enough times to know what's going on. I'll get them in position in the front of its biological arms, in a downward slung position. While positioning them, I found the head was blocking my view. To quickly get out of the way, I can hide it from the view. Up in the top right hand corner of the screen is the viewport display. We can toggle if the piece is visible or not by clicking the eye. It's still there, just invisible for now. To make it visible again, I just click the eye so it's open. Now for some firepower for our dino fellow. These oversized guns will make for a perfect addition to the mechanical arms. They come separate for printing, so we need to join them together for this model. Well, I guess I put it off long enough. It's time to make the neck to attach this floating head. There are multiple ways you can do this using different techniques, but for this one I'm going to be doing the simplest. Grab and rotate. And move them around like you would with any physical piece on the tabletop. So what I'm looking for on this new models is simple geometric shapes that I can use as building blocks for the neck structure. I find a simple cylinder which will work perfectly for a type of spine. I grab it and move it over to the model and get in a roughly correct position. But one vertebrae isn't going to make a neck, so I need to duplicate this bit. Another magical invention I love about virtual kit bashing. How many times have you found the perfect piece and needed 4 more of them to attach to your model? rummaging around in the bits box only to realise they come in sets of 2. So now you've got to find them online or go to a bits retailer or buy the whole new kit. Well, no. Thankfully, we have the duplicate tool. I simply duplicate the vertebrae as needed and begin the laborious steps to line them up to form the new neck structure. Shift D to duplicate, grab and rotate. Keep doing this until the neck is in place. Okay, back to the guns. I think the side looks a little bit bare. What does a giant Gatling gun need? Some miniguns on the side, of course. In this setting, your imagination is the limit, and if your Dino Rider is going to be taking on mutated carnosaurs powered by rogue AI, ridden by telepathic dictators, she's going to need all the firepower she can lay her hands on. So, once I have one minigun in place, I then duplicate to the other side. But now looking at it, it's pointing in the wrong direction. I right click and mirror, so it's facing the opposite direction. Remember, Ctrl Z undoes all your mistakes, and is a vital tool which I'm sure could have many benefits for many times in the real world. We're going to pop back to the neck to build a little bit more. It's kind of looking like a chicken neck at the moment, not one that belongs on an apex predator. I grab some more bits and, like the spine, I begin arranging them to fit. I then lay on some plates along the back of the neck. And just for good measure, I add some on the tail too, scaling as I go so they fit better. That's looking pretty good in the final model. Let's have a quick look at the robot juggernaut they might be facing, because I think one of them is heading over here right now. So you've got your finished model. Time to export it as an STL so you can print it. This is as simple as going to the export option in the file menu and selecting the STL option. And we're done. You can then import it into a slicer of your choice, like you would any normal STL file, and then add supports. I currently use Chitterbox and a photon slicer, and once I have it all ready, I pop in the 3D printer and wait. While we wait for this print to finish, I'd like to shout out some fellow YouTubers who have taken me up with this challenge. Our aim is to show everyone that 3D modelling doesn't have to be hard or something that only elite modelers can do. Using simple techniques like rotating, grabbing and scaling, you too can make your own Kitbash model entirely from STL files without having to cut or glue a single piece. Okay, now it's time to head over to the turntable and check out this beast. What I love about kitbashing is that you are not limited by the models you're in production. There's so many STL files out there which you can combine in such creative ways. I've thrown together a custom world where these models can represent characters. Sure, it's not legit to play in tournaments, but this is a hobby, not just a competition. If you love creating something which is one of a kind and personal to you, then this is the perfect platform to jump into. You can create your own D&D character, or go a bit more crazy like my cyborg dinosaur. With all these free STL files available to you, your imagination is the only limit to your creation. I hope that this video, along with the others, will give you the encouragement to try out this groundbreaking piece of technology and bring your kitbashers into the 21st century. Until next time, I'll catch you all soon.